In the heart of Onitsha, there was a woman whose jollof rice was so delicious, people would fight for the last plates. But what if I told you every spoonful carried a secret from the mortuary? This is not just a story, it's a warning. And after this, you may never eat roadside food again. The sun was barely up, yet the streets of Ochanja Market were already alive. Hawkers shouted over one another, bus conductors banged the sides of rusted minibuses, and the aroma of frying akara and fresh bread drifted between the stalls. Onitsha never slept. It simply shifted gears. But today, like every day, a single smell rose above them all. Jollof rice. Not just any jollof, Mama and Kiro's jollof. By 8 a.m., a neat queue had already formed outside her wooden food shed by the bus park. She sold from a large blackened pot, the kind that told you it had cooked 1,000 meals. The steam that rose from it carried a scent so rich, so mouth-watering, that even people who had sworn off roadside food would find themselves drifting toward her stall. It wasn't fancy. No painted signboard, no shiny plastic chairs. Just 3 long benches under a patched tarpaulin roof, and a pot that seemed to hold magic. If you never chop Mama and Kiru jollof, you never dare Onitsha, one bus driver boasted to his passengers, slapping the side of his bus for emphasis. And he wasn't lying. Traders from the main market, bankers from Upper Iweka, even police officers on duty, they all came. Her food never disappointed. That morning, a tall young man named Ifeni stood in line, clutching his transport change. He was hungry, but more than that, he was curious. Because something about Mama Nkiru's jollof had been bothering him for weeks. He had first noticed it one Sunday evening when he sat with his friends eating from her stall. The rice was soft, yet firm, the seasoning so perfect it seemed impossible to replicate, and the taste lingered in a way that was strange. Not bad, but unforgettable, like it was designed to cling to your memory. And that night, as he lay in bed, the taste was still in his mouth. He woke up craving it again. At first, he thought it was just good cooking. But when he overheard 2 women at the market whispering about people getting sick after eating roadside food, something unsettled him. Because those women, who had sworn never to eat outside again, returned the very next day to Mama Nkiru's store. Why would people risk their health for one woman's cooking unless there was something far stronger than hunger pulling them back? When it was his turn, Mama Nkiru greeted him warmly. She was in her late 40s, plump, with a constant smile that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. Her head tie was always tied the same way, and her wrapper, though faded, was spotless. "My pikin, how much?" she asked, scooping a plate without waiting for an answer. 200, Mama." She handed him the steaming plate with a piece of fried meat that glistened under the morning light. "Chop, my son, and come back tomorrow." Ifeni took his plate, sat, and ate. As always, it was perfect. But this time, he paid more attention to the way the grain seemed to glisten unnaturally, to the faint tang that didn't quite taste like ordinary water-boiled rice. From where he sat, he could see behind her stall. A large blue drum stood in the corner, covered with a rag. Every few hours, she would fetch a calabash of water to cook or rinse her utensils, but no one ever saw her refill it. The day passed, and the craving came again. By evening, Ifeni decided he would follow her after closing, not in an obvious way, just to see where she went. Because if he knew where she got that water, maybe he could recreate that taste himself. At exactly 7 p.m., when the market noise began to thin and the bus horns faded into the distance, Mama Nkiru packed up her things. She loaded her empty coolers into a wheelbarrow and began pushing it towards the inner streets of Onitsha. Ifeanyi followed,
keeping a safe distance. She walked quickly past the dimly lit chaos, past the row of locked shops, until she reached a side street that smelled faintly of antiseptic and something else, something metallic. It took him a moment to recognize the building, the low, faded structure with the peeling green paint and the cross over the doorway. The mortuary. Mama Nkiru pushed her barrow to the back of the building and disappeared through a small gate. What business could a food seller have inside a mortuary at night? Ifeanyi's stomach tightened. He moved closer, careful not to make noise. From a crack in the gate, he saw her reappear minutes later, carrying a large plastic bucket. She set it on the ground, adjusted the rag over it, and looked around quickly before covering it completely. Then she wheeled her barrow away, heading home. Ifeanyi stood frozen, the smell from earlier now making sense: antiseptic, metal, and death. He told himself maybe it was nothing, maybe she had a relative working there, maybe the bucket held something else. But deep inside, his body knew the truth before his mind could accept it. Because when she passed under a streetlight, the liquid inside the bucket shimmered faintly, the same strange glisten he saw in her jollof rice. That night, he couldn't sleep. His tongue still remembered the taste, and for the first time, it disgusted him. The next morning, he told himself he wouldn't go near her stall again. But as he walked through Ochanja, the smell hit him like a wave. His stomach growled, his mind said no, but his legs carried him forward. He joined the line. When Mama Nkiru looked up and saw him, she smiled knowingly, as if she'd been expecting him all along. "My pikin, welcome back. I saved your meat." And as she handed him the plate, Ifeanyi noticed the same blue shimmer in the rice, and this time he was sure it wasn't from any spice he knew.
The first spoonful went down reluctantly. Ifeanyi's mind screamed, "Leave," but his mouth betrayed him. The warmth of the jollof spread through his chest, each grain sinking into him like a slow spell. It was as if the rice had his own voice, telling him to take another bite, and he did. When the plate was empty, he sat there, heart pounding, licking the spoon without thinking. Mama Nkiru watched from her pot, her smile small but knowing. "You will come back tomorrow, my son," she said softly, almost like a prophecy. He didn't reply, he just left. But as he walked away, the craving only grew stronger, an itch in his throat, a pull in his stomach. By the third day, his resolve broke. He was back at the stall. It wasn't just him. The crowd seemed bigger than usual. Traders jostled for space. Taxi drivers abandoned their cars in the middle of the road to grab a plate. And it wasn't hunger on their faces. It was something else, a kind of need. Ifeanyi noticed a man eating so fast that grains of rice stuck to his chin. Another woman, pregnant and sweating, held her plate with both hands as if afraid someone might snatch it away from her. "This thing not be ordinary food, though," a voice whispered beside him. He turned to see Chika, a small-time clothes seller who rented a stall near the food shed. She was chewing slowly, but her eyes darted around like she was ashamed. "What do you mean?" Ifeanyi asked. Chika leaned closer. "You never hear? They say the water wey mama dey use no be from borehole, no be from well, no be from river." The more you think you are imagining things, the more the whispers start to sound like truth. Ifeanyi kept quiet, letting her continue. "They say she gets special connection. Now waiting they make her food sweet like this." "What kind connection?" Chika lowered her voice until it was almost inaudible. "Mortuary water, the one where they use bathe dead body. My sister's friend talk say she see am with her own eyes." Ifeanyi's mouth went dry. He remembered the night he followed her, the mortuary, the bucket, the shimmering liquid. "Na lie," he said automatically, but his voice lacked conviction. Chika gave him a small smile. "Na lie wey plenty people believe, no be lie again, oh." That evening,
As he walked home, Ifeanyi passed two men arguing in front of a kiosk. One was swearing that his neighbor's uncle had been sick since last week, vomiting and shivering after eating roadside food. The other argued that if it was Mama and Kiro's jollof that caused it, they would all be dead by now because everybody ate it and still came back for more. Ifeanyi kept walking, but the words stuck. If it was true, why wasn't anyone stopping her? Why wasn't the smell of antiseptic and metal enough to keep people away? Some things are so good, people would rather die than stop tasting them. The next day, Ifeanyi made a decision. He would get proof, not just rumors, proof strong enough to make even the most addicted customer drop their spoon. He spent the morning pretending to help a friend in the market while keeping an eye on Mama and Kiru's store. He noticed a pattern. She never fetched water during the day. The big blue drum behind her shed always seemed full, even though she cooked large pots morning and evening. By 6:45 p.m., just as the market began to close, she started packing up. Ifeanyi slipped away first and found a hiding spot behind a tailor's kiosk opposite the mortuary side gate. At 7:10 p.m., she appeared, pushing her wheelbarrow the same way as before. He waited until she disappeared inside the mortuary before moving closer. This time, he didn't just peek through the crack. He slipped in quietly, hugging the wall. The smell hit him instantly, sharp, cold, and heavy. He could hear faint voices from inside, then water splashing. Peering around a corner, he froze. Mama and Kiro stood with a man in a white coat, his gloves dripping. Between them was a stainless steel table, and on it, a body, pale, still. The man filled a bucket with water from the table's drainage. Without hesitation, Mama and Kiro lifted it and poured it into her blue drum. Ifeanyi's stomach turned. Once you see where your favorite meal comes from, you can never taste it the same way again. He slipped out quietly, heart hammering. Back in the street, the night air felt different, heavy with the knowledge he now carried. But there was a problem. How could he expose her? If he simply told people, they would laugh, just like Chika had hinted. The only way was to catch her in the act with witnesses, and that was dangerous. As he walked home, he noticed something else, a faint metallic taste on his tongue. He hadn't eaten from her that day, yet it was there. It was as if the memory of the rice was inside him, refusing to leave. By the time he reached his street, he was trembling. The next morning, he woke up to commotion outside his window. A boy from 3 houses away had collapsed. People were saying he'd been vomiting all night. Wetin he chop? Someone asked. Na Mama and Kiro's food yesterday evening, came the answer. The crowd murmured, but no one mentioned stopping her. Instead, 2 men were already arguing about who would get to her stall first before the rice finished. And as he watched them rush off, a thought chilled him to the bone. Maybe it wasn't hunger driving them at all. Maybe it was the water calling them back.
By the next day, Ifeanyi had made up his mind. This couldn't go on. Someone had to see what he saw. He went straight to Chika's stall. "Do you trust me?" he asked. She looked up from folding a pile of jeans. "Depends. Why?" "I'm going to prove it," he said. "Tonight." Chika frowned. "Prove what?" "You'll see. Just meet me behind the mortuary by 7 and bring someone you trust." That night, the air in Onitsha felt heavier than usual. The street lights cast weak yellow halos, and the market, though quieter, still hummed with distant voices. Ifeanyi crouched behind the same tailor's kiosk, his eyes on the mortuary side gate. Beside him were Chika and the lanky man she introduced as Emma, her cousin. At exactly 7:10, the wheelbarrow appeared. Mama and Kiru moved quickly, the way someone does when they've done something so many times it's second nature. She slipped through the gate. They followed. Slow, silent steps. Inside, the smell was worse this night. A mix of bleach, rotting flowers, and something metallic that clung to the back of the throat. They kept to the shadows, watching as she greeted the same man in the white coat. This time, Ifeanyi forced himself to watch without flinching. The body on the table was that of a young woman, her hair still wet, her skin pale under the cold light. He poured water over her, rinsing her from head to toe. The runoff slid into the drainage where Mama Nkiru's bucket waited. She lifted it, her face calm, almost reverent, and poured the contents into her blue drum. Chika's hand shot to her mouth. Emma's eyes widened. Some secrets don't lose their power when you share them. They grow darker, heavier, and far more dangerous. Suddenly, a sound broke the air. "Who's there?" the man in the white coat barked. They froze. Ifeanyi grabbed Chika's arm and pulled her back toward the gate. They stumbled into the street, breathless, hearts pounding. "Now you see why I couldn't just tell you," Ifeanyi said. "We need more witnesses, the kind no one can deny." Chika nodded, still pale. "Tomorrow, we'll get people." The next day, they quietly spread the word among the few trusted traders and keke riders. Not the type to gossip for fun, the type to act when they see injustice. By nightfall, a small group hid behind shops opposite the mortuary. At exactly 7:10, Mama Nkiru arrived. They followed in silence. But this time, someone's phone light clicked on at the wrong moment. Mama Nkiru spun around, eyes narrowing. "Who dey there?" she demanded. A man stepped forward from the shadows, one of the traders, phone still recording. "We dey here, and we don't see you." Her face shifted. No fear, no shame, just a cold, thin smile. "You think you've caught me? Do you know how many people I fed? How many mouths depend on me?" The most dangerous people aren't the ones who hide in the shadows. They are the ones who believe they are untouchable. "With water from dead bodies," someone shouted. "Water that gave strength," she shot back. "You think people keep coming because of my cooking skill? That water binds them. They can't stop. They crave it. Even now, you feel it in your tongue, don't you?" The group exchanged uneasy glances. She was right. Some of them had eaten from her before, and even as disgust called in their stomachs, their mouths watered at the memory. The man in the white coat appeared behind her, holding something metal. "Go home," he said. "Forget what you saw." But before they could move, Emma's voice rang out. "We've recorded everything. If anything happens to us, the video goes out." The man froze. The group backed out, the recording safe in Emma's phone. Within an hour, the video was in a dozen WhatsApp groups. By morning, it had flooded the city. Crowds gathered outside the mortuary, shouting for answers. Some people defended her, insisting the rice had never made them sick. Others gagged at the thought, swearing they would never eat roadside food again. By noon, the police arrived. They took Mama Nkiru and the mortuary worker in a black van. She didn't struggle. She didn't shout. She just sat there, eyes forward, lips curved in that same cold smile. For a few days, the market was quieter. People avoided roadside food, carrying their own water bottles and packed meals. But Ifeanyi noticed something that made his stomach knot. Some of her old customers, the most loyal ones, looked restless. They hung around the empty spot where her shed used to be, eyes darting, hands twitching. A few whispered about how no rice in the city tasted right anymore. One evening, he had two of them talking near the bus park. "Una dey hear say we go come back. You fit follow me when she return." "Follow you? My brother, I dey wait. I no fit sleep since she come out." Ifeanyi walked away quickly, heart sinking, because now he understood. Even if the woman never returned, the craving will remain. It's not always the poison in the food that destroys the people. Sometimes it's the hunger they can't let go of.